Hello and welcome to this episode of Community Voices Uganda on Civic Space TV. I am Phillip, Mulissa, your moderator for today. On this episode, we're having a conversation about Kawempe North constituency, and for a very long time, this constituency has been a part of the news, whether for the good or for the bad, or for the fair or for the illegal. And today, we want to try and make sense of the developments from out there. And indeed, we have an update or something that came up about 3 days ago when the judge of the High Court actually came out and annulled the election of the Honorable Elias Limbas Nalukoola from as the victor of the by-election that happened barely 2 months ago, and a lot was talked about that particular by-election, including semblances of violence and arbitrary arrests, detentions, and a lot of things that happened in that particular election. And when we see that 2 months later now, the court declares that that constituency is once again vacant and there should be a fresh by-election, there is a lot that comes in, including the costs, including a redo of what we actually saw happening in the by-election, but also stretching back into how the Honorable Muhammad Sekrinya, the former MP of that particular location, came into that office and how it came out to unfold for him, leading to his arrests and subsequently his death without serving the people of Kawempe North. And joining me on that conversation is a panel of distinguished citizens of this country, whom I will give about a minute each to say hello to us and indeed talk to us about their particular environment, but also their general feeling about this particular conversation. And I'll start with you, Comrade Walid. Greetings, welcome to the conversation. And from the FDC perspective, because we have our time is really moved in, I want to hear your, first of all, your thoughts, your reaction to this court ruling from Kawempe North. What do you make of it as Walid Lubega, but also what is the perspective of the Forum for Democratic Change? Well, I think Mr. Lubega is unable to hear me right now, but we shall pick in from him as we continue with the conversation, and certainly so we see how we get his thoughts and reactions to the subject at hand. I have Wachi Nasul. Nasul, greetings, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Phil. Allow me once more appreciate you and all fellow panelists. My name is Wachi Nasul, Deputy Mayor Northern State Division, and a teacher, an educator, and a political activist. I'm delighted to be part of this show and to be among those views on what is happening here and there about the topic of today, which I believe we shall discuss much more at length when you open the discussion. But however, as far as the political environment is concerned in Mbale, it has been to a great extent a success that the NRM structures were formed up to the state level. However, they had some few irregularities, and as I talk now, the petition is before the NRM secretary in Chadondo because of the irregularities, as you know. But what people should know that the Electoral Commission of Uganda is very clear. It says that an election has to be free and fair, implying that there is no election that is perfect or 100% obtained. So whatever happened in Kawempe is not all about Nalukoola, but it's all about what happens in other constituencies. To me, as a politician, I feel it was a really unfair decision as far as all the legalities that they talked about and the process that we are getting into. We have less than 6 months to go into politics. And if you look at the timing and then you say you are nullifying an election and you want the electoral commission to organize another election, yeah, they should also spare Ugandans and the taxes that people are paying vis-a-vis the money that is going to be wasted in less than 6 months and organize for another fresh election. So I cannot concur with that decision taken. And I'm among those that said that it was an unfair decision. When you look at what all the two parties submitted before court, even NRM did not do the best, neither did not do the best. So why is it that they could not look into all the two parties like it has happened before, where others have been protected and others have not been protected? This time around, they could also accept the celebration and the win of no and wait for the next election, and NRM does its best to retain the seat as they so wish.
All right. Thank you so much, Nasur, for that. And certainly we have more of that conversation a little later in the conversation. Denmark, are you able to hear me now?
Good morning. Good morning, Phillip, and good morning to the listeners. And good morning, everyone on this conversation. My name is Melody. I hope my voice is clear, Phillip.
Yes, you are.
Okay, great. My name is Melody Nakalanzi. I am a social worker, but very passionate individual about the rights of people and advocacy, particularly people that are marginalized in society. I do not affiliate myself with any party because of the inconsistency in almost all the political parties that exist in the country. So I will be speaking basically from an independent point of view. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melody, for joining us. And Walid, can you hear me now? I saw you.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, good to have you now. And greetings, welcome to the
Good morning.
conversation.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Mulissa and colleagues. My name is Mulindwa Walid Lubega. I'm the deputy spokesperson of the Forum for Democratic Change Party. On my own behalf, I would like to appreciate Center for Constitutional Governance for offering us this civic space, which is very premium, such that we can air out concern that regard to our nation. Thank you, Mulissa, for also moderating this show.
Yes, thank you, Walid. And I want to pick it from there. You see, when court declares Kawempe North vacant once again, and it takes us back into a by-election, barely a couple, about 7 or 8 months to the next election. What is the reaction of Mr. Mulindwa Walid Lubega to this court decision? But two, what is the perspective of the Forum for Democratic Change as regards the decision of court in Kawempe North? Yes, Mr. Lubega.
Fast forward, we in the FDC, I don't think we welcomed the ruling of the High Court in a way it was delivered. We actually not happy with the ruling of the High Court because we thought the people of Kawempe spoke in the loudest manner on the day they voted their member of parliament. We saw the army, the involvement of the army, the police, all security infrastructure and paraphernalia in the election of Kawempe, how the journalists were tortured, were beaten up, were clobbered, people were imprisoned, all manner of harassment that we saw in Kawempe by-election. First of all, it fell short of being fair and fair on the part of the state actors, and that is, I mean, the NRM. So for the NRM to take this matter to court, it was unfair because they are the one who are at the helm of deploying all kinds of machinery, all kinds of coercive machinery of the state to harass the voters. But the voters came out unequivocally and voted against the status quo. And we saw how the Honorable Nalukoola was declared the winner. So in my own view and in the view of the Forum for Democratic Change, we think the Honorable Nalukoola deserved a very hard win, which he got out of a lot of sacrifice, because NRM had done whatever that was in its talk to make the NRM parliamentary candidate Hajat Farida Nambi Chigongo to be the winner, but the power of the people overwhelmed the state machinery. So for her to go to court to challenge the outcome, it was inordinate. It was as if she was not satisfied with the verdict of the people, yet she had forced her way to be declared the winner. So we think that Madame Nambi maybe is aiming at getting a shortcut back to Parliament, because as we are aware, the Honorable Nalukoola will have to appeal against the ruling of High Court in the Court of Appeal. And even before the Court of Appeal can pronounce itself on this matter, it is in black and white that Madame Nambi will have a shortcut to have her way back to Parliament. I don't think the Kawempe will go back to polls, but what I can foresee in the 3 weeks from now, Court of Appeal making a ruling directing that the Madame Nalukoola be declared, be sworn in as a duly elected member of Parliament for Kawempe North, without subjecting her to a fresh by-election. That is the direction. So court is just the High Court was ostensibly to prepare us as the Nalukoola go back to appeal court to defend his victory in the Court of Appeal. Then the Court of Appeal will, because we all know the courts, the judiciary is already weaponized. The judiciary is under captivity of the state. So we know what what can come out of the court, because the judges are almost cadre judges. So in terms of fighting for fairness, fighting for rule of law, that the Forum for Democratic Change we envisage and we have clamored for since our formation in 2004. We think we have a long way until this NRM regime will be removed out of power. That is when we shall return sanity to this country. But for as long as we still have the NRM, it can do even worse things. We saw.
All right,
remember
thank
what
you so much.
Kawempe, as I wind up. So in Lubega North in 2011, when the Honorable Kasibante had won that election, the Lubega North parliamentary election. But what happened is that the NRM candidate, Mr. Pamida Singh, went to court and requested for a recount. Court only declared Pamida Singh as a member of parliament for Lubega North. So what we saw in Lubega North then, it will really resurface in the Kawempe North in the Court of Appeal. That is what I have.
Thank you so much, Walid, for that account, and indeed creating the relation with Lubega North back then, and certainly we wait to see how the situation unfolds in the Court of Appeal, and indeed how going forward sanity can be restored in Kawempe North. I want to hear from you, Melody. From a social perspective, what is the effect of this kind of ruling on the people of Kawempe North? But two, how do you see the situation happening in case court says that we go back into an election, which is surely just a few months to the next general election? Yes, Melody.
Okay, thank you again, Philip. I think one thing we need to first understand is that Uganda as a country has maybe the worst judicial system that we can ever have or ever claim, because the way things happen generally, look at a person like Besigye who has been in prison, I think, since last year, and then you have people that have cases in like court, and just like after 2 days or after 1 week, things are okay. From the social perspective, and this is what I've been arguing ever since that election was nullified. Number one, what happens in those elections, for starters, is that there is a lot of brutality that happens at the polling station. And I think that is my biggest concern every time I'm going to talk about a by-election, that people are always tortured. Who is tortured? It is this grassroots woman that has maybe a street chaotic somewhere that is going to get destroyed. Her capital is maybe 100,000, and you are destroying her source of money, you are destroying her source of income and food for the children. What then that means is that this woman is going back to zero, and for her to get to that 100,000 capital is most likely going to take her another 5 years or 10 years. That is number one. Then number two, it is very, very unfair from what the court took as their very biggest decision for them to nullify this election. I think the most disturbing was the reason as to why they nullified it, that Honorable Nambi claims that her votes, that about 1,600 voters did not turn up. In 2021, the voters register was showing 1,800,000 something voters. Only 1 million came out and said that only 1 million came out and voted with a few extra numbers. It means that about 80,000 people did not vote. What then that means is that if Katumba Oye also came out and said that my voters did not come up, then maybe he would go to court and say that we think this election was not fair because the other people that did not vote maybe were my people, and I think they should have voted. If maybe that is a reason, but that is not on, maybe that is even not enough. Notice that this is a woman that even had evidence. I don't know what court did, what kind of evidence they gathered. Notice that there is evidence for this woman being at the polling station, casting her vote. Like all these things came out even before this case was in parliament. She posted this, so what this case was in court. This woman posted these things herself on her social media, and she's coming and saying, I did not vote. Like, I really do not get the entire gist of like the judicial system and how these people run things. But also, notice that when by-elections happen, most times the ruling party thinks these elections are supposed to be won in their favor. If you have noticed, over time, most of the by-elections are won in their favor. But we need to acknowledge that this is central Uganda, and maybe things like dynamics are different from what happens in central Uganda and what is most likely going to happen in Fort Portal or elsewhere. People here have people they believe in. People here have parties that they subscribe to. So it means that for you to win a by-election as an NRM candidate is most likely hard. But because for them it has not happened in their favor, then they think this cannot happen. Notice there was a lot of inconsistencies that happened, and it is only the local person that is going to suffer this kind of brutality after they nullify the election and people are supposed to go back. Thanks, Philip.
Thank you so much, Melody, for that. And Nasur, I know you are a member of the ruling party, the NRM, and a leader that being a deputy mayor in Mbale. To talk to me about your thoughts on, having to declare a seat vacant, and there is an order to have a by-election in which should take about 2 months. Should the appeal process not continue as it is planned? What is your reaction, especially as a member of the NRM, who first of all is going to release this money to have the by-election undertaken, and two, knowing that the NRM is unlikely so going to lose this election, even if it is redone 2 or 3 more times? Yes, Nasur.
I want to once more that my colleagues that have just been saying something about the topic of today. I want to first concur with whatever they are saying. As a member of the ruling party, I want to be realistic. Sometimes it's not so necessary to hide what even a layman can easily understand and still possess the rightful thing about what is happening. The first thing about NRM, Honorable Farida to have lost this election, it was expected to me as a person right from day one. The security or whatever the street did in Kawempe was broad daylight that people saw and witnessed what happened. And as you have just said, as part of the ruling system, the ruling government, it is a clear indicator that we have the right to guide and protect the citizen. So when you leave the street that is under your control to really mistreat people when you are seeing and you don't come out to blame or to take concern about what's happening, it's an indicator that you were in line or you were in support with whatever they were doing. Secondly, NRM invested in a lot of money in those campaigns. You had people making accountabilities, so and so making this comment. That was also a reflection that people had gotten a lot of money. NRM tried its level best, but people of Kawempe decided. As my colleague just said, look at the numbers, the margin which Honorable Nalukoola went with all the lead number he had against the Honorable Farida were also already an indicator that really people decided. And as I said in the first place, that even if leaguing is there, but an election has to be free and fair, meaning that there are some irregularities and they are from both sides. So if maybe one does more than you, it is an indicator that he is the one who has been blessed to be a honorable member. So back to your question of saying what's the impact? The fact is they are wasting the taxpayers' money, because you can't say we have less than 7 months to go into the general election of the country and you want to organize another election. Each election will give someone a chance to be in office for less than 8 months, and the money that is going to be spent in this process alone is a lot of money. So what was so long for court really to also look at a number of things here and there and let the thing to go? Because Court of Appeals there can't also tell what's going to happen. But the fact is NRM is behind all this. I know there are very many people, influential people, also trying to protect their names after picking a lot of money in the name of doing mobilization, which mobilization did not work out. But also let's compare the people's power and the money power. If money has not worked out, let's respect the voice of the people. And we accept the defeat and wait for the next thing that is coming and prepare much more better. Of recent, we saw that President Hussein was moving into different slum areas. People of Kawempe were among the beneficiaries of the donations, a lot of money. The ghetto youth got money. And when you also look at the structures of NRM, we multiply with the cells and the wards around the Kawempe alone. All this shows that NRM has more numbers as compared to these other parties. So if these numbers of NRM really had come out openly to vote for our own candidate, even you could not see issues of Honorable Farida going to court. So me as a person, I would expect that as NRM people, we could come back and sit and analyze and say, but what happened? What went wrong? How best do we need to plan? Because what already we are doing, one, we are adding a problem onto a problem. People voted for their person, people have been tortured, people have been arrested, and then you bring them to an election even when the person has not made even 2, 3, 4 months. They are going to make a protest vote, and still the same person will go through, and I don't know when he goes through, we'll again call them to go to court or they'll accept the defeat. So I believe we could for now endure and go with what has happened, and we just plan for the coming election, which is so soon from now. Because you can just see that by August, we shall be having the flag bearers for these positions. So that means that our flag bearer may be the same candidate as Honorable Farida or another person to come. Just strategize better, and we look at the weakness that were there before and we put things right to have this seat retained back for NRM.
Thank you, Nasur, for that. And certainly so, one of the things you preach is the fact that the national resistance movement should accept defeat in Kawempe North and certainly so allow the party that won to take on its leadership until the next general election. Thank you. And Walid, I want to pick your thoughts. You see, one of the reasons sets out is the fact that there was violence in the election, and it talks about how polling was distracted by mobs of people at particular polling stations. But too, they talk about the fact that many people were not allowed to cast their vote, and they say these are reasons enough to have this election nullified. Are those not valid reasons to have an election nullified? And certainly so, by you coming from the Forum for Democratic Change, where one of your core values is believing in democracy that involves the rule of law. When people go to court and they secure a ruling, is it not something you should be supporting, and certainly so for the propagation of the rule of law in this country? Yes, Walid. Yes, I can hear you
Can you
now.
hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. For us as FDC, we think the ruling of High Court circumvent the will of the people. For us, FDC, we believe the will of the people is supreme, reign over and above everything. And because the will of the people is exercised through voting. On the day the people of Kawempe North went to the by-election, they spoke very loudly on who should represent them in parliament, and that was none other than the So what I would have expected from the regime is to respect the verdict of the people. The NRM did whatever it was in its stock to make Nambi a win, including bribery, including intimidation and everything. But all did not work. So, but I think what the NRM is trying to do is to prepare us for the 2026 election, which will be messy, which will be chaotic, which will be violent. So the Kawempe North by-election and its related High Court ruling is ostensibly to prepare Ugandans. It is a precursor to a more violent election that we are yet to witness come 2026. So Ugandans
Walid,
out there.
if you allow me, one of the things the Forum for Democratic Change has continually accused the NRM for is not following the law. And if the NRM now is choosing to go through the legal procedure, to go through courts of law and secure that it desires to take, why not credit them for, in the end, trying to side with the rule of law?
You see, there is no rule of law when High Court can come up with such obnoxious decision that circumvent the people's will. In my own view, that is not the rule of law that the FDC clamored for, or has clamored for ever since its formation in 2004. The rule of law, what we mean by rule of law, is also respect to the will of the people, what people decide. The way I've told you that NRM did whatever it takes to make Madame Nami, including rigging. You remember very well how the register for Kampala, the returning officer for Kampala, when he started announcing fake results, and fake results was rejected by the NUP and the opposition supporters within the Tale Center. That's how he had to stop the tallying of the votes, and then they went to declare declaration form per declaration form, polling station per polling station, after a careful scrutiny. But if he was not stopped, he would have declared Nambi the winner, which in our sense, it circumvents the will of the people. So, imposing a leader on the people, a leader who is not the choice of the people, that is not the rule of law that the FDC has always clamored for. For us, we believe in a government that will exercise the power, that will respect the power of the citizen, the voice of Ugandans. When they say no, the no should be respected. When they say yes, the yes should be respected. And this is not the first by-election where NRM has leading. We saw what happened in Kayunga in 2022 at the height of the by-election in Kayunga. How the NRM candidate was declared a winner with votes more than the people who voted on that very day. And we saw what happened in the court. So, court, the way you have said it, for us as FDC, we are seeing the NRM weaponizing the judicial system against the opponent. So, the court is being weaponized to suffocate the voices of the masses, the voices of the government, the voices of the people of Kawempe. No. So I don't think Madame Nambi, in her true sense, he feels that he's the winner. At least the NRM people on this show have already also considered that they lost ground. If they lost ground, what is it that the NRM is forcing Nambi on the throat of the people of Kawempe? So that is not the rule of law that the Forum for Democratic Change is.
All right, thank you so much, Walid, for that. And Melody is still riding on that same issue. Look, government is trying to go by the rule of law, and Walid here seems to disagree with that particular perspective. But for us, you say that the will of the people was in the election of the Honorable Imbaz Nalukoola. It is also through the will of the people that put up the constitution that whoever is aggrieved can go to a court of law and everyone is bound to respect the decision of court. Is it not a good thing that the NRM government, which can otherwise use any other means that could be legal or illegal, has chosen to go through the court system to have their grievance resolved? Is it not something to celebrate, Melody?
Okay. I already told you when I spoke first that maybe, not actually maybe, that actually Uganda's judicial system is very shitty. There is no way you accept a ruling like that where evidence is provided, where you're giving people only 3 days to go and bring like their written information and their written defense. And these are things that cannot keep working like this. You do not call for a court hearing, and immediately after 2 weeks, you're saying that the court ruling is actually final. It means you have not even had enough time to make sure that you maybe gather the right evidence, to make sure that you know that actually this thing happens. Let me tell you, Phillip, even if we decide to do this election and redo the by-election, that lady is not going to win, not in any way. This is reason number one, and the most important reason. I already told you that you're suffocating individuals that are a grassroots person that is earning from the smallest thing in Kawempe. She has a street, like she's selling mangoes and things like that. And the next time police is coming to like say, please leave, we have an election and things like that. People do not want to see those things. The country that we are in is a country of survival where people need to choose that I can forego some things and make sure that I eat and make sure that my kids eat and things like that. But when you then have a by-election and people are going to suffer again, then it is, I don't know if maybe government enjoys the drama that happens in by-election. I don't know if maybe they enjoyed the drama that maybe people like Mr. Muhammad were doing in the election. I really do not know. But like, I think the problem of these people is that they are very selfish. Notice that the day when that election was nullified, I think Tango Doi was addressing a certain group of people at the NRM secretariat. And then he says that they are very happy because of ABCD and D, like things that do not even correlate, things that are not even real. And he's saying for them, they are happy because it was nullified. Notice, this is people's money that they are going to waste, even when they say that each party is going to meet its own costs. Nambi is an NRM candidate. NRM gets its money from the taxpayers. So who then is going to pay for it? It is not like Nambi is going to wake up and say that I am going to pay for myself, I'll meet all the expenses. She still has to go back to the party and ask for the money. So it means it is the people that are still going to suffer at the end of the day.
Melody, if you allow me, we chose the law, and the laws that we have in the country are put in place by a parliament elected by the people of Uganda. And when we chose the particular laws we put in place, including the provisions that talk about conducting by elections and the manner in which they have to be conducted, and indeed how they can be challenged, the price we pay is the cost implication of what is involved therein. Therefore, I'm of the view that we should not use the cost as a justification of the fact that we should actually not have these by-elections. It is a choice we took as a people of Uganda, and we should not complain about that, not so.
I think, Philip, it is this simple. This is the response to that particular question. The judicial system is bad. The kind of like constitution that we still follow is not a constitution of the people. Notice that we have amendments of the constitution at least every day, at least every year. We have something like age limit. We have UPDF amendment. It means the constitution is no longer for the people. It means that the constitution does not belong to us anymore. We do not even have a say about it. If they are going to amend a bill and they are discussing it only 3 days and they amend it, it means there is not like consultation. It means that these things that we are even going for are not the things that we believe in as individuals. Even when the constitution should belong to the people, it no longer belongs to the people because government has decided to take it upon themselves that they own it and they have the right to change it anytime they want. I think that is the right response for the question you asked.
Thank you so much. And I want to hear from you, Nasur. The other day, your leader, the party leader, and the first lady of this country came out to apologize to the people of this country, and particularly to the people of Uganda, about the very many challenges that could have emerged in their leadership of 40 years. Do you think this could be a game changer, and particularly for this particular constituency and going forward for the entire region, on how they can revive their trade in winning back the peoples and indeed the votes of central Uganda come 2026? And certainly can it be something that will change the game for Farida Nambi to win the election come whether they have a by-election or in 2026? Yes, Nasu, as to whether the apology made by the president of Uganda to the people of Uganda and indeed Uganda in as far as the wrongs that could have happened during his 40-year rule could affect the outcome of elections like the one of Kawempe North, to have the people actually rethink their choice and vote back the NRM into parliament and indeed overwhelmingly for the presidency in 2026. What's your thought on that?
Thank you, Mr. Phillip. One, me personally, I appreciate the president for the statement he said. You know, as a leader, it is quite good to understand the mistakes, both done by yourself and your people, and you take a lead to show for the rightful thing. So, president did the rightful thing to apologize to the people of Uganda. But however, when you look at the political dynamics of Uganda and Uganda in particular, the things are beyond what President Museveni can do. Look at the constituencies and the members of parliament from the opposition in Uganda, and then look at what his son, the general, has kept us on saying. It is much more also of but necessarily on this statement to have a positive impact as changing the
It's Nasura. I think your connection is a little challenged there, but
in Uganda. So the apology alone is not. Yes, please.
yeah, please, you may continue now. I think you've settled. You say the apology is not enough.
Yes, the apology is not enough. That's why I said that the NRM still has a long way to go, major to convince the people of Uganda that the perception they have is not all about hatred, it's not all about tribalistic, not all about tortures. You know, many people have been tortured, which is on record, and people have seen this. Many people have said it on media, where, and these are families, people with families, and also left people suffering. So their apology alone also has to be accompanied with other positive events that make people relieved from the burden and the hatred, the envy and the aim they have towards NRM. So this is the beginning of
So
the
maybe if you
presidential
could tell
apology.
us one, two, three examples of the actions that should follow the apology. What do you think the president can do to bring back the hearts of Ugandans that have fallen away with him?
The first thing, people have been detained, let them be brought back out, because you have seen people being detained even with no proper record of what they have done. People have not been brought to court. So you can now just see the issue of Eddie Mutwe. So such people should be brought to courts of law and people be bailed out. If people are gotten victims of the circumstance, people can also be punished and people will be know that so and so is being punished because of this. So I believe that the first thing that one needs to do is to also relieve the people have been detained for some years, even without proper reason.
Thank you, Nasur. Colleagues, time is very much fast spent, but so we have about 8 minutes to be out of here. And Nasur, I think the network is off. I don't seem to get you, but you're going to have a chance to really pass through your thoughts as we conclude the conversation. I want to pick what's the way forward, because the decision is already out there and the decision of the High Court can only be challenged by the Court of Appeal. What do we see happening through the Court of Appeal and indeed as we head into the 2026 election that is already around the corner? What's the way forward? Yes, I'll start with you, Melody. What do you see happening going forward, and probably what can be done to ensure that some of these challenges are mitigated?
Okay. I think I'll be like concluding and giving my concluding remarks. I think it is high time that maybe people understood how government works so that we can be able to change the government or live with the government the way it is. I know it is hard for us to say we are going to change the government right now. I know that is very hard, but government has then the right way to say that we think we can do things better the way they should be. Like the previous person was saying, you do not just come and give an apology to the public and just stop at that, when actually we still have arrests happening without evidence. We still have people suffering here and there. We have people in prisons who have not been able to go to court for about 5 years. It means everything needs to change. But the most important thing that needs to change is how the judicial system is working. This is supposed to be an independent body, but notice that it's no longer independent. And this is something that, like, the Constitution is something that protects the people. But at a time when you do not have that, you do not have what protects you as a small group of people, that as a group that does not have power and resources, then it means it is very problematic. It is high time the judicial system or the judiciary comes out and says that we think these things cannot happen again, and they can be independent to protect the most vulnerable groups of people in society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melody. Comrade Mr. Mulindwa, what do you think should be done, and indeed what do you see happening going forward as we look at this case unfolding and indeed heading into 2026? If you are there, kindly unmute and speak to us.
Hello?
Yes, you can hear you.
Yes, well, I think what should be done, first of all, I think it lies in only one thing: regime change. because whatever that we can do, or we can talk about, may be just a symptom, but the overall cause is the decayed regime. We have a regime that has been in power for the last 40 years. Longevity in power means abuse of power. I can give you an example of a headmaster. At a local level, if you have a headmaster who has been a headmaster for the last 20 years, ultimately the school becomes his because he knows each and everything. If it is a government school, a government-owned school, it becomes his. Even the people around will say, you are going to Walid's school, Ogenda kusomera Walid, because he has overstayed. So once somebody overstays, he abused the generosity, he abused the power that is within his own jurisdiction. So even it happens that the LOC1, if you have an LOC1 who have overstayed for the last maybe 20 or 30 years, even the LOC will become his. He will commit all kinds of crime and nowhere you can take him because he becomes infallible. That is the state Mr. Museveni has become. Uganda has become a project of Mr. Museveni. It is his inherent property. So whatever he does, he doesn't care. So what we think as FDC is we need a regime change. That is the only sustainable solution to this malady. Without removing this regime in power, we shall come here to cry more and more and more to come. The issue of coming here to say that I'm sorry for the people of Uganda and so what, that is bullshit. We cannot even hear that. The only gift that Mr. Museveni can give to the people of Uganda is to see the space in this coming election and say goodbye. Uganda can be ruled by any other person other than him. He may copy a list from Mzee Nyerere. Time came when Nyerere thought that he could no longer pretend over Tanzania. He prepared the transition. That's how you see Hassan Mwinyi was prepared to take over from Mukapa, from Nyerere, and the successive president that came in. In Kenya, Moi discovered that he could no longer make it. He prepared a transition under Uhuru Kenyatta. Although the Kenyans rejected Kenyatta and voted Mwai Kibaki, but at least Kenya moved past Moi. So that is what we say that Museveni, that is the only thing that Ugandans want to hear. Because other things that they making remodeling the judicial systems work, building strong systems, all that can be done under a new administration. It can no longer be done under Museveni because Museveni believes the system it is his. You have heard him saying it is my oil, my land, my EC, my whatever. Uganda is his own inherent property. So if we want to solve that problem, Ugandans should rise up, clamor for regime change. Once we remove Museveni, we shall reorganize this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mulindwa Lubega. And Nasur, what do you see as a way forward in trying to resolve some of these issues that keep emerging around the electoral activities of our beautiful country, Uganda?
With my colleague, the previous speaker, was saying Museveni should leave. The problems of Uganda are beyond Museveni, but there is need for collective effort to address the challenges, because there are some challenges that are to be collected with I and you and another person without President Museveni. Then there are those that are to be put right by Museveni. So the first recommendation I would make as we get into 2026 general election is one, let's respect the rule of law by both sides. let's not, we are blaming government, but why should we also seduce government to take on a hard hand onto you? So let's all respect the rule of the law. Secondly, let's have collective dialogue. And this major actually helps NRM so much than even any other party. Because these other oppositional parties, for them, they're using the weaknesses of NRM as their advantage to promote their parties and gain support. But I believe if NRM could give room for a better dialogue, right at all levels, and they get to explain to people what is right and what is wrong, collectively, when these opposition parties are also there and available, it can open people's eyes and they can easily assess and analyze and tell who is right and who is wrong, rather than just intimidating people. And at the end of that day, you do something in court at the expense of a few and you forget the majority. Where even some of us, even if you're NRM, also get annoyed when certain things are done out of the law, like what has just happened. Then the other thing that we should also do is let's involve stakeholders. Involvement has been there, but let's make a real community participation. For example, we're into these discussions here now, but many people are getting to hear our views, and they can use these views to change their perception, their mindset, and wherever they are. So let all whatever is going to happen or take place, let it be taken to that real person deep in a village somewhere in Buda or in my area where I am and even other areas, such that people get into an election when they are fully informed of what is supposed to be done, all they do and they don't. Last, I also recommend that let's try to mobilize the people for the good of their lives, for the good of their choice of the leaders they need to have, because we have ended up using people for long projects, we leaders, me inclusive. Like I'll come to gather my support from the people, but I don't tell people the reality, but rather I'll only look at what damages or malices the other person so as to win favors and have majority numbers. But let's try to be realistic. Let's accept to be religious people even in politics. Let's not only be Christians and Muslims who go for prayers, but when what we talk and what we do is contrary to what we say we believe in. Because this will help us. The majority people are behind us and they are following us as their leaders. But to what extent are we telling them what is supposed to be done and at what time and how should it be done? Yet we know the truth, but we are hiding the truth because we want to malice. You're saying I'm 7 is this, yes, I'm 7 is this, but is your leader also good? And you as a leader at that lower level, like what have I also done before I also look at M7 is issue and other leaders as well. But I believe we have an easier way to have a better election come 2026 if all these things are respected and put into action. But change begins with you and me.
All right, Wachi Nasur, thank you so much for your views and for your time. Nasur is the Deputy Mayor, Mbale North Division. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your thoughts with us today. Melody Nakalanzi, social worker, and indeed a very ardent social political activist. Thank you so much for your thoughts and for making time to the conversation. And the deputy spokesperson of the Forum for Democratic Change, Mr. Mulindwa Walid Lubega. Thank you so much for your thoughts and for making time for this conversation today. And indeed, to our viewers, thank you so much for keeping it Civic Space TV and indeed Community Voices Uganda. Special thanks to the technical team and special thanks to the Center for Constitutional Governance and all our partners that keep making sure this work is done and indeed we make a contribution to the growth, to the progress of this beautiful country, Uganda, to East Africa, and indeed the African continent. I am Phillip Mulissa, and I shall see you next time.